Okay, we're going to look quickly at Lab 6 here and the directions. We're going to look at Microsoft Azure and how to create a virtual machine in Azure. So we're going to walk through that tutorial. So I'm going to go there. Okay, so this is a little tutorial that we'll go through. Here are the different parts. We'll just start at the first part. Now this takes a little while, but I'll walk through it a little quickly. In the video, I suggest you take your time when you go through it and read some of this stuff. So again, introduction, and I talk about different virtual machines here that you can set up and install, and different types of machines, different sizes. Sizes range from B all the way to H. Generally later in the alphabet tends to be bigger. Different storage options. We generally have an operating system disk and a temporary disk, and we usually set up a special data disk for storing our data. There's different ways of managing these. Nowadays, you generally let Azure systems manage them, and they set up a basic network for you. We will learn a little bit more about the networking options later on with us for this. So now we're going to activate our sandbox here. This will set up a temporary working environment for us and a little command console over here where we can work on things. We're going to use secure shell for connecting to our virtual machine here. So that's SSH. And when we connect to the Raspberry Pi, we use just a login name and a password. But here we're going to use a public-private key pair for this to show you a different option for this. So we're going to generate a public-private key and use that. Okay, so now this sandbox is done creating. I have a console now over here in just a sec, and I have just an hour basically to work with that here. So I'm going to go down here and make sure I create this key. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to wait for this terminal to come up over here. Okay, so my terminal is up over here. I'm going to paste in my text. And whenever you do this paste watch, sometimes, especially if you're highlighting going from a website, it will have some weird characters off here. So just make sure it matches here, doesn't have any weird characters at the beginning or end. Okay, so that'll generate a public key. It has where should we save this long public key, and you can just use the default file name. And then we need a passphrase. So I'm going to bring up a little editor here, and for the passphrase, I'm just going to use CSS user. So I'm just going to type that in now, CSS user. Now notice nothing shows up there. And that's common, and I have to type that in again, CSS user. Assuming they match, you'll get this created for us. So again, just type in the passwords here. Nothing will show up as far as the keystrokes, and hit enter there. So my key has been created now. Okay, now I want to make grab that copy, so I'm going to display that copy here. So I'm going to copy this command here, and I'll show and output some of this. So again, I'm just going to paste that command, and it's just going to do a catalog, a display of this file. This is where the key is stored in my home directory in the .ssh folder, and it's called this. And here's the key itself. I'm just going to highlight that. I'm going to need that later on, so I'm going to paste that into a document. So I just have a notepad document set up here. I think that is working fine. So you just need, paste it in this or an email or some sort of temp spot for you to have. Okay, so we have that key displayed. They talk about how you can copy that key and stuff like that. We don't have to worry about that right now. You can read through that on your own time. Okay, now we're in part 4, which is an exercise. So here we're going to make sure, this is a hard link to see, but we're going to sign into the Azure portal here. So push, and I'm going to open that up in a new tab. Here, I think it opens up a new tab automatically. And it'll open up this Azure portal over here. And then we're going to start creating our virtual machine. So we're going to create a virtual machine, and it tells us our configurations to put into that virtual machine. So here you can click on virtual machine and create. You can go create resource and create a virtual machine. Any of those will work there. So somehow get to the virtual machine, and we want to get to this screen which shows our different things. And again, so in the exercise, it shows what you want. We want to make sure we're in the concierge subscription and the resource group. If you select that, it has a unique temporary resource group as part of your tutorial sandbox to use, so make sure you do that. Give the resource a name. I'm just going to call this CIS 2011. Today is Friday, and I'm recording this. Let's see, and I can't have an underscore there. Okay, that looks good. Again, west location, there's different locations, and we're just going to leave this to west. That's fine location, no infrastructure or security. And the type here, we want to switch that to, okay, so this region location standard. They suggest using Ubuntu 18.4, so a little older server. So I'm going to switch this to Ubuntu 18.4 long-term support systems there, and we'll use x64. That's like an Intel 64 stuff. The size of it here, we want to switch, or we wanted a D2SV3, D2SV3, so that looks like it's already set up that way, so that's good. I'm gonna have to change that. We'll be connecting up with a public key. The username by default here is Azure user. I'm gonna put that up here so I keep track of it. And I'm going back here. So we are going to use an existing public key for this, and that's the one we've created before. So rather than generate a new public key, I'm going to switch this to use an existing public key. It'll make a spot for me to paste in a public key. I'm going to go grab my whole public key here. This big long thing. Copy that and paste it in here. So that's my big long public key that should have been pasted in there. Okay. So that's my public key. And go back here. Okay. I paste that in, key pairs. Okay, paste this key in. Yeah, they talk a little bit. Now, next part is the disk option. So again, I want to make sure this is secure shell. That's how I'm going to connect up to this one with a secure shell password. So that's good. Okay, next is disks. This is all fine. The one thing we have to do is create a data disk. So down here, create a data disk and just hit OK. This is just to create a 1 terabyte disk and put it in here. So that should show just like, so this is all standard, and then we added this data disk here. That's this data disk we added here. Then we can go on to networking. And in networking, we just accept all these default parameters. SSH should be open as an inbound port, and then I'm going to hit review and create. So again, that walks us through networking, accept all the default parameters, and continue. So I'm going to go on to the next thing, and we'll watch. I hit review and create, so it reviewed. It's going to cost me 11 cents an hour to run this. Again, you won't be charged because this will be run in a sandbox. It'll be alive for an hour. So I'm going to hit create, go back here. So I'm on part 5, options. So again, we're going to connect to this virtual machine using SSH for this. So now we're going to go to the next thing, which will open our console back up here. I still have 52 minutes to go on this. And so I'm going to want to find this connection string, and I want a string that kind of looks like this command, but it'll be maybe a different user, although this is the user I think we use it, and a different IP address. So I want a different IP address. I want to type that in over here. Okay, so going back to my virtual machine, it's created. I'm going to go to the resource, and it'll show the virtual machine here, show the IP address here. Again, if you don't get there, you can, if you go home, you can always go, it might list it here as a virtual machine. I can also click here and it'll list it as a virtual machine. Anyway, we'll get you to the virtual machine. But you see the IP address that it's up and running, and we want to click on this connect SSH, and it'll show us our command for connecting to it here. So this is our command. Again, I'm going to post that into my little box here. But the one thing we're going to delete is we are going to use a default key path. So I don't need that. I just have to type SSH. And then again, this is the username that I created. That's what I used up here. And this is the IP address. And so even if I go back here, that's this public IP address, and mine is 137.135.5669. So that's my command. So now going back here to my exercise here, again, basically I could just type this in, but I'm going to paste this command in here. And again, it's secure shell SSH space, and then my username Azure user, and an and then this is just a sample number. I'm going to have to use my correct IP address here. So I'm going to type that in and hit enter. It says you haven't connected to this machine before. Are you sure you want to connect? And we say yes. First time you connect to machines, they want to make sure that, and then they ask you for the passphrase. So again, the passphrase I used was CSS user. So I'm going to type in CSS user and hit enter. Again, it doesn't show up as you type it, but it should be there. Now I'm in the system. I'm on my machine. So my prompt has changed to machine, and this is the user I'm logged in at that machine. Here, and I can type in some commands like ls or ls-al. I can print my working directory. I can like switch to the home directory and do an ls-al to see all the folders there. So it's just a basic Linux system, very similar to our Raspberry Pi system, but on a virtual machine for this. And I can do other commands here that see what it suggests. So again, we can see what processes are running, ps-l to see what processes are running. We can see what messages, look at the message queue. We can list the blocks, the disks that are set up for this idea. So, and then these are in Linux. Disks are generally mounted at with names like SD, A, or B, similar to like in Windows we see a C colon and a D colon or a K colon, something like that. Here we see CD and then some number or name. So here I see CDA, CDB, and CDC as our three main disks. And then they're mounted, parts of them are mounted in different locations here, but that's okay. So again, so we've got that set up. Now we're going to, we've got our data disk and it's here, CDC, but it's not mounted anywhere. So we're going to do this command here. And so let's go over this command a little bit. So sudo, it means we do this as a super user. fdisk means we do a command, and this is the command we're doing it on, this C drive. So again, if I were to just type in just this first part, let's see if I can do that. I'm not going to be able to do that because permission denied, because I need to be a super user to do that. So if I type in sudo and then that, well, here, let's go. If I go the up arrow, get that command back and key over and now insert sudo, I can do that as a super user. And again, now I have to type in some commands here. So like m will give me help. And there's a command for like create a new partition and all this sort of stuff. So I can do all this. I'm going to actually quit here. So what we do here is we echo. We do an N for a new partition, a P. That'll be, if I do an N, that'll be the print out of the partition. So these are the commands we're typing into this thing. So we're sending these commands to this with what we're piping them in. This is the vertical line here. Okay, so again, rather than doing this manually, I'm just going to copy this all, paste it over here, and hit enter, and it'll set up my primary, do a new partition, make it a primary partition one, and set that up. So here, so now if I go back, if I use the up arrow, I can go back in time and see, here's my, not my fdisk, list blocks. So now I'll list my blocks, and on the C drive, it's now set up with a partition, and I can access it. It's not just a blank disk. So, so we did that. We've got to make that partition writable. I'm going to go here and paste that command in. So it'll set up that block, and then we need to mount that. Right now, if it doesn't have a mount point, we can't access it in the file system. So I'm going to copy that command and paste that in here. Now if I go up arrow a couple times, oops, I'm going to go to list block. So I'll see the blocks now. So now my C drive, this temporary disk I created, it's been created a partition, SDC1, and again it's mounted as data. So if I cd to /data, that is my new disk. I can ls-a and look at what's there. And there's actually just a lost and found folder, but really no data there because I haven't set it all up. Okay, now I can install some software on this server. I'm going to do this command. I'm going to do that, and then I'll talk a little bit about it as it's running. So this is a sudo superuser apt-get. This is apt is a automatic package manager that we often use, and update says just go out and update all the packages we have on our Linux server. So it's updated everything there. Now we're going to install. I'm going to copy this command and paste it in here. So again, sudo as superuser do apt-get and install the Apache package, and I think Y means to run it automatically. So it's going to install the package Apache 2 web server and get this all up and running for us here. Okay, it took a couple minutes for that to run, but now I've got that installed. I can check its status, see if it is running. I'm going to copy that command and paste it over here. So this command is going to display the status. The no pager automatically, whenever you display things on these virtual machines, they run it through like a pager, like more or less, so that it pages at a time, and they're just doing that now. But otherwise, we're just doing system call the status of the Apache 2 thing, and the system is up and running. It started here, so that looks good for that. Okay, so we're going to check our network settings here. We want to connect up to our remote machine here and see how that works. And connect to our remote machine with these different ports. And we'll talk more about this and revisit this when we do networking stuff. So again, I want to be able to check, like right now, the only port that's open is my secure shell here, but I want to see if I can get to HTTP, which runs on port 80. For this. Now, I'm just going to try that manually, and it should fail. So I'm just going to grab this website here. Again, I'm going to switch over to my Azure console here. This is my machine that's running. Here's the website. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to open up a new window and just see if the web server I can get to. I installed a web server. It should be there, right? So I'm going to try to get to that web server here. And it's going to come back with an error and not work. So that's why we have to set up some network security options and enable port 80 because it's blocked by default. So again, we're going to go to our overview. We're going to switch to our resources, settings, and networking. So here, let's look. So the site can't be reached here. So networking. So again, I'm in my virtual machine here. Went to networking, and it shows me what ports are enabled, and port 80 isn't on the list or down here. So I'm going to click on this add inbound port rule. So again, check my instructions here. Add inbound port rule, and this is what we want to add for it. So we're going to go here, add an inbound port rule. So we want the source to be HTTP. Oh wait, no, the source will be any, let's see, the service. So from any source, so anyone on the internet can connect and to this destination. The service here we want to be HTTP. Now often you also want to do HTTPS for the secure one, but we'll just do HTTP today. Port 80 by default, and the priority will be 310, and allow any HTTP traffic, that's fine, and a description. So allow web traffic to the new server, or they have you type in a different description here, but same thing. So again, HTTP Priority, again, the priority is not that important. It should assign a priority automatically depending on how many ports you have open. And we hit add. So now it'll show, besides secure shell here, it's creating the security rule. As soon as that's done, we have secure shell here, and then is port 22, and we also open port 80 now. So going back to our tutorial now, we can open up our default web page. So I can go back here, I can reload this page, and here's my default Apache web page. It just tells me how to configure Apache now that I have. So I can access, this is going to my remote machine, connecting up to the remote web server I installed on my remote machine. So this web server now, let's go back here to my virtual machines. Here's my Friday virtual machine. Here's my virtual machine at that address. It's up and running. And remember, I installed this Apache web server for this, and that's displaying this for it. So that looks good. Summary. Okay. So we have to check our knowledge so we can get credit for this. For security reasons, you must use an image from Azure Marketplace. No, you can install your own image. By default, we just installed Linux, but you can set up a different machine here. So what effect is the default network security system? So generally we allow, and this is common in all networks, we'll talk about this, all outbound traffic, but inbound traffic is blocked here. So we generally, outbound requests are allowed. So from a virtual machine we can send out, we can go to a website and all that, we can browse the web and all that sort of stuff. But inbound traffic is restricted. Suppose we have several Linux machines. How do we want to configure? And that's what we do. So again, you could do a username and password here. That's what we did on a Raspberry Pi. But we're doing a private key with a passphrase, a little more secure. And then again, you can share this private key around to your different environments there. So you just want to check your answers with that. So okay, so that's your machine one. And you should finish up this unit is complete. Okay, let me know if you have any problems with that. Again, you can then close all this. The machine will go away after an hour, and this will also, you won't be able to read this. So all these stuff will disappear, and there's no billing involved with this. Okay, good luck.